You mentioned, I guess this was Friday when we last spoke, the need to be patient against Cincinnati. How do you think the team did on the night overall at that aspect?
I thought decent. I thought we didn't start the game exactly the way we wanted to start the game, but then I thought we kind of played our way into it and then started to get on the ball and pin them back a little bit. It didn't exactly result in a ton of chances, but and then in the second half, I thought we were just good in terms of staying organized, staying patient defensively, and then when we dispossessed them and good areas of the field for us and bad areas for them, we were able to have some really good transition moments. And, that's kind of how the winning goal happened. So overall, really pleased with just kind of how the guys went about it. We forget that, this is 3 games in a short amount of time. And some guys are going all 90 minutes, and the wear and tear that puts on them. And, the effort by everybody is just amazing. So a real credit to our guys. And again, just so happy for all of them to be rewarded for their hard work. It was tough the other 2 games because I felt like the same. I thought they did a good job and they put in real efforts that were deserving of results. But to finish one off and get the full 3 points is really satisfying.
We'll go back to Steve Goff. Steve, go ahead.
Chad, from an emotional and a morale standpoint, where do you think this team is now after a difficult 7 to 10 days?
Yeah, I think it's big. It would be difficult to have the week that we've had, play as well as we've played, and not end up with 3 points to be rewarded. I think just puts us in a good place mentally, helps us move forward, helps us believe in what we're doing, that we're doing the right things, that we are paying attention to little details, and those details are making the difference. But it's been a really long, difficult week on so many levels, and you could even say that of the entire year. There are just so many guys out, and there's so much adversity that we've dealt with and the group has dealt with, especially over the course of the last week, that again, it's a testament to these guys' character that they just kept going and they left it all out there.
We'll go back to Jason Anderson. Jason.
Chad, going back to Chris, it seemed like as the second half wore on, he was able to not just get forward, but get forward into really dangerous positions. Just before the goal, he almost got across and near the penalty spot, basically. Was that tactical instruction, or was that something that kind of opened up for him to do on the fly?
Yeah, I think the game just kind of showed that, and we took advantage of getting him involved higher up the field, his athleticism, his pace. He almost got another one there at the end to make it 3-1, but just credit to our guys of taking what was there, and you had him somewhat fresh because he didn't play the middle game, and we needed to rely on guys who didn't have as many minutes, and he came through for the group in a big way.
We'll go to the Tried and True DC podcast. Go ahead, guys.
Hey, Chad, thanks for taking the time, and congrats, first and foremost, on the win. We noticed that Bill Hamid wasn't in the team tonight. Any updates you can give sort of on his status as we look ahead to Atlanta next weekend?
Essentially, he and Junior Moreno are both day-to-day. I would say there's a very good chance that both of them will be available next week.
Chad, there's no more questions, man. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.
DC United's interim head coach Chad Ashton joining us post game here, and obviously got a chance to ask a question there about Hamid and getting an update about Moreno as well as a bit of a bonus. So having Moreno back, probably more importantly than hearing what we thought Hamid was going to be available today. It sounds like it's can't be anything too serious if he's still on the day-to-day status, and having a full week is great. But Moreno, I guess in my mind, was just one of the 25 players we have on the shelf for the year. So here and having him come back and maybe get Nyman a little bit of a rest or whatnot is definitely good news, or even a chance to move Yamil forward. But do we really want to move Yamil forward much at this point? I mean, he's really been in the maestro role back there.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like Yamil's been doing really well. I was just going to go back to the Bill Hamid being available. It's hard because I think that Seitz, like, he was playing really well tonight, and then obviously it was like a little bit of his blunder that led to that Cincy goal, right? So it's hard. And I feel like last game too, like, he had some really strong moments, but again, it was a little bit of like his falter and just concentration and letting his mind wander a little bit that had him bobble the ball and have the other team score. So it'll be nice to have Bill back in, but I think there's like so much speculation right now just about Bill's status with the team. So I like seeing Seitz be able to get these minutes, because I think it's like purely speculation. Sorry,
Yeah, it looks like Chris Dugachim is at the podium, so let's send it back.
Awesome, man. All right, we'll go ahead and start taking some questions. Steve Goff, go ahead.
Hey, Chris, congratulations.
Thank you, Steve.
Well, are you able to see the big picture here and appreciate all you've been through the last few years, especially with your health, and to score a winning goal at such an important moment?
Yeah, for sure. I'll be able to think about it and dwell on it more a little bit later. But, that's all I want to do is just help the team. That's all I've ever wanted to do when I was out. And just to be able to be healthy and help the team on the field and get a win and help the team win is that's everything to me. So, I'm very happy that the team played well today and that we got the win.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. We'll go to Jason Anderson next. Jason, go ahead, buddy.
Hi, Chris. Congrats on the goal and getting the win. I guess I have a two-parter. The first is just, do you remember your last competitive goal? And then the second is, it seems like lately in the last 2 months or so, not only are you getting more time, but you're getting more and more involved attack-wise. Is that just a development of your game, or is that is there something else playing into that?
For sure. Last competitive goal was my senior year at Maryland, 2016. Got a goal away at Michigan in our last regular game of the season. So, it's been a while. I don't get too many, so I'll take this one. And in terms of attack, I just want to take more ownership in that, and I can do even more, I know. And I think it's my teammates and coaches have seen it in training, but not as much in games. And, people have come to me directly or indirectly, telling me that they want me to do more of it. And I have to take ownership and be willing to do that day in and day out in every game. So, I want to do that more. My team, they recognize that I can help the team that way. So, people have come up to me. Bill's been on me for years about it, about, not letting them off the hook. Paul's someone who I've been talking to a lot lately about that. And then also Nolan, Nolan came to me before the Chicago game. It's like, take ownership, take the responsibility of making a play for your team on the offensive end. So, I was glad I was able to do that tonight.
We'll go to Jose Umana next. Jose, go ahead.
Hey, Chris, congrats on the goal. In the defensive side, what did you feel, or how did you feel you guys performed overall, and where did you feel you guys excelled at the most?
Yeah, I thought we did great defensively, especially with the pressure they kind of put on us in the second half, especially after the goal. On the goal, it was a little unfortunate. Me, myself, I should have made a better play on that header and not headed it back straight to their team. So, I take ownership of that mistake. And, but I thought overall we did well defensively. They didn't have too many chances. Even their goal was kind of like a half chance. So, I thought defensively we were great. And I'm glad that the way we responded after giving up the goal, that's everything. We could have put our heads down like we have in games before, but, we felt we could have won. And we did that.
We'll go back to Steve Goff. Steve, go ahead.
Chris, Chad just credited you for all the hard work you've put in over the years to get back to this point. Describe what it was like since you were able to return to competitive soccer and what you've had to go through to get to this point?
Yeah, it's all love. I did work hard, but a lot of people work hard with me. Teammates, coaches, and especially our training staff and medical staff. They've done a lot for me, and I'll always and forever appreciate that. And this is my way of giving back and saying thank you is coming on the field and working hard and helping the team, get points. And that's what I want to do. I'm glad I've been healthy most of this year, pretty much all year, to be in a position every game to help the team. So, people know my story and know what I've been through. But I try not to dwell on it too much. I try to live in the present. And right now it's great. Everything's great.
We'll take one more question, Chris. We'll go to Emily Olsen. Emily, go ahead.
Hi, Chris. Congrats on the goal. I wanted to know if there was anything said at halftime. It's the first time this team's been up going into halftime in a while. And based on whether it was the response in the Philly game or what, was there anything said at halftime to kind of keep you guys in this game in an unfamiliar position?
Yeah, Chad came in and said we got to start the half better. The start of the game wasn't great from us the first 5-10 minutes. They were a little bit on top of us, so we wanted to start this half better. And we also didn't want to, drop off the level. That was the main thing everyone was saying is that, we're up 1-0. We can't panic. We just got to keep playing the way we were playing and go for a second one. Unfortunately, they tied it up, but, credit to us for staying with it and having the belief that we could still win the game. And, that's what we did tonight. Everyone played their part. Everyone worked hard, and it's just been a great progression, the last 3 games for us. Chad said, during this week that we lost a game against Chicago that we played better and we should have won. We tied a game against Philly that we felt that we should have won, and the next progression was to get a win in a game that we should win. And, that's what we did. And, everybody's happy that we were able to do that. So, yeah.
Chris, thanks for your time, man. Appreciate it, and congrats again, buddy.
That's DC United's Chris Aduiacham scoring his first career MLS goal tonight. He said it was his first competitive goal since, 2016? And, we kind of glossed over it at the beginning of the show, but there was a time not too long ago that it had been going through Chris's mind that he might not play again when he was dealing with cancer. And just so excited for him to find the back of the net tonight. And he was in attacking positions throughout the night. So it was just definitely a result of great work from him to put himself back in the position to be on the field as much as he's been lately. And tonight, being in the right position to slot home the winner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a sign. I thought this when I saw it going. It's a sign of a good team when other people are scoring goals. A great team, a team that has good mechanics and works really well. The striker will score the goals, but a really good team, a team that's working well together and working hard for the same mission, which is winning the game, you'll get goals from center backs and right backs and stuff like that.
I completely agree. Every single day I'd rather have not a breakaway leading goal scorer on my team. I'd rather have more people on the team scoring, because I think that just speaks to your tempo and the way that you're playing, as opposed to you just feeding it to one person every time and having them slot it through to the back of the net. I'd always rather have it be more of a team effort and kind of shared responsibility to score the goals. Because a little bit also, if that person gets injured, what are you going to do then, right? I'd rather see everybody take ownership. Today we saw 2 defenders score, right? The fact that they're taking ownership, you just heard Chris say that, he had those opportunities. We all saw that he was making those great, offensive runs forward. You love to see it. You love to see and even hear about his recovery story and just the fact that he's been able to come back, that he was able to kind of beat cancer, is in remission, and he's able to come back and kind of play this professional career that was in front of him, and he's really thriving.
Can we just have all the goals from all the players?
Oh, yeah, so as I was saying, I will challenge that just a little bit, only to say that I would love to have, in addition to periphery players scoring, mean, I'd love to have a Joseph Martinez bagging 30-some a season as
You're
well,
right?
right?
But
And
also,
I
like, then
thought we
Joseph
had-
gets injured, and what is Atlanta doing right now? Not a whole lot. And there are a lot of different pieces that go into that. I understand that it's like very surface level to just say that it's Joseph missing, but like that's a huge part of what they're going through right now. So I would absolutely rather, and obviously DC United has not been scoring goals this season, right? So I can't say that because 2 of our defenders scored tonight, everything is solved and this is a great team. Right? Like we still have our problems that we're going to need to work through. I'm just saying that like I would rather see goals from multiple people as opposed to just having that one key person that you always rely on.
And honestly, I think that seeing defenders scoring is also evident of a change in mindset of we actually want to go forward.
For sure.
Want to
Oh,
create.
absolutely. Yeah.
You saw, and that was not the one time that Chris Adoy actually went forward. He was involved up the line the entire day. He was given free reign to do it. He almost had another one, a little bit more composure, and he puts a second goal in the back of the net and really puts the game away. And the fact that your defenders feel like they have the ability to go forward and create like that, that's encouraging, and that's fun.
Yeah, I love it, and especially because John, it doesn't have to be injury. Sometimes your star player's wife gets homesick, and then you have to really figure out how to play without them.
We watch a lot of Atlanta games.
Oh man, it's just you really had to bring that up tonight.
Just like messing with you at this point.
Oh man, blood's gonna boil. I mean, I guess I totally agree. Right? I mean, I think anyone would agree. You'd love to have goals come from wherever you can get them. I guess I'm a little bit concerned, and I think more than anything, it's probably just the fact that they're now free and they're now playing a more attacking style. But
Kamara's going to score 20 goals for whatever team we trade him to.
It's like, what are we going to do to buy a goal from the attacking portion of this team, right? It's like, I want to continue to see our defenders score, but I want our attackers to score 5 times more, right?
I completely
and like,
agree.
that's what's killing me.
Yes, I agree with that sentiment. The fact that Donnie Pines even found himself standing at the opposing team's end line and was able to pick that ball up is like, so I mean, Sorga, where were you? Like, where Rivas was in at that point, right? Like, where were either of our forwards in that situation? I love to see our defenders pounding on that, but also like, I don't know, their defender boots it down the field, and what's happening in defense?
Right. Yeah, I'm never feeling good when center backs are that far forward. Of like,
except when they score.
Except when they score. That's right. And credit to Donovan. So we're starting to get some questions coming in here on the YouTube, and apologies for little technical issues getting that started. So we are up on YouTube right now, as well as, of course, on Twitter. You can always join the show using the hashtag #TriedAndTrueDCU or jumping in any of the various chats, and we'll have the call-in line here open in just a second. But important question I do want to address here, because I think we were a little bit more excited about the Yordi Reyna signing than we were the Rivas signing. But there's a question in here, and I believe that he's potentially I don't know that it's necessarily COVID, but he's definitely out with an illness or an injury or something. He's been out for a little while, and it did sort of seem as if that was the issue when we were in New York, but don't want to speculate too much. But we just haven't seen from we haven't heard from Yordi Reyna really in a couple weeks.
Yeah, just stating the fact that there was COVID within the Peru camp. That's where Yordi was. We don't know if he's quarantining or if he's unfortunately got the illness. I can't wait for him to come back. I liked what I saw from him. I don't know if he's your 20-30 goal scorer, but he seems like a pretty good pickup.
No, that's still Kamara, right?
Kamara will score 20 goals for whatever team we send him to. After
he's still got time this season. What do we
got? Would you not
left?
save him? Would you not try to keep him for next season?
It depends on the salary. I mean, it's pretty obvious that he needs to go somewhere else to be afforded. I would probably bet that the Galaxy would take him back right now. They kind of need someone to score goals.
So are you thinking in the best for Kamara right now, or in the best for DC United?
Best for both parties. Kind of like a CP situation where it's not really working anymore. It's towards the end of your career. Okay. Let's see if we can shake things up and work for CP when he went to LA. I think Kamara could use from a change of scenery in DC United.
CP went to Philly first.
I mean,
he kind of missed their glory days. He was a part of that build-up.
That's right. The other thing is, I mean, I know some of you guys are definitely more interested in what happens to the players after they leave DC United. I mean, I would look at it 100% from DC United's team. If they think Kamara should stay, then he should stay. If they want to get rid of him, they should show him the door.
I think it's a given that he needs to leave this team.
Yeah, and I think we've said that all along, is that you need to bring in a striker who's going to produce for you, and you haven't seen that from Kamara at this point. I think most of us are prepared to say that.
Do we know
hasn't
why, though?
panned out.
But I also,
You're absolutely
I
right.
absolutely also have that question because, I mean, we just got rid of Boateng, right? And he's like tearing it up for Columbus right now, right? So like, is it just that this system wasn't being played to his advantage and potentially give him another season in a system where we are more attacking mindset and we are sending those balls in more? Does he have that success? Because I would argue that like maybe we got rid of Boateng too soon, right? And
Well,
like he was kind of sad to leave. He didn't think he
that's
had a
the
fair
situation-
shot.
If that's the situation, then he's got 5 games to show it, and they're showing that they're going to do kind of a platoon setup up front. So you're right. There could be an opportunity for him to play his way into there. But if you don't do that over these next 5 games, I agree with Joshua that he probably is going to be applying his trade somewhere else. And
So who do you think we're getting to
getting a
replace
bunch
him, though?
Oh, no. We're getting a bunch of comments on YouTube. Guys, if this is one of your first shows, or if you've only been with us since DC United's been really, really bad, I love Kamara. I've seen what he's done elsewhere in the league.
What are the comments? Can you sum them up?
People are saying don't rack and stack players without a new coach. Is it his fault? And such. Kamara, I think, is still a double-digit goal scorer in this league. I don't know, man. I don't know if an outside coach or a coach coming in will want to keep him on the squad, right? I think
Why?
Because of what this year has shown. He clearly doesn't mesh with it. Unless that coach is so confident in their system providing to that type of forward, I don't think they keep Kamara around. And Kamara can't be happy with this, right? He's used to scoring double-digit goals, and he's got, 3 this year so far, and 2 are from the spot. Look, I
He's
agree.
still in the Golden Boot race for DC United, though, for what that's worth.
Oh, man. Yeah. But look, I would love to see. I think. Oh man, let's get deep. I think Yamil can be this 10-8, this playmaker in the midfield. I think Edison is the left, or Ariel is the right. I think DC United needs to spin it forward. If you're going to get a coach, I really hope you spend some money. 'Cause DC United have been spending money. Let's give them that. They have been spending money on players. I think you go for the 9 this season, and if it's hopefully someone like Joseph Martinez, Giovinco, they didn't quite make it in La Liga or Serie A or whatever, and you bring them in MLS and they tear it up.
And I think I'd like to see them along those lines, like not bring in someone on the back 9 of their career or the back 3 of their career, right? Like I'd like to see, someone who's younger and has some upside in the prime of their career right now. It's obviously riskier in a lot of ways, right? But I don't know that we've seen DC United do that at the 9 position in a true DP, other than Wayne Rooney, who doesn't really fit the mold I just described.
Yeah,
right?
but it's a little bit of risk, but also a little bit of investment, right? Because if we could find someone who's kind of in the cusp of breaking out into their career, and we get 2 really solid years out of them, and then we are able to sell them for a lot more than what we received them or what we paid for them, and then we're able to kind of replace them pretty quickly, right? Like that is kind of the mentality that that all of MLS is really getting into as a selling league, right? Like that's kind of what you're going for, is that you're either bringing these kids up through the academy or you're signing them super young and you're taking that risk on them and assuming that you're able to pass them forward.
Yeah, it doesn't look like we have a striker in the pipeline. Kudu Pichot seems to be a little bit more of an attacking midfielder or winger. So I think it will have to be forward. I see the comment about Almiron. Oh man, that would be fun.
What's the comment?
Talking about, we've mentioned Joseph Martinez, how he was awesome. And they said he was awesome when he had Almiron scoring behind him. Bring in Almiron, basically.
Okay.
And that's another thing we were saying. You need a 10 who's pulling the strings, because Almiron doesn't score a lot of goals, but makes the players better around him. So,
oh man, I look, if we do get a 10 like that, it doesn't matter who's playing striker. We could get Kai Kamara on one leg, and he would bury so many goals. If you have that kind of chance generation, which we don't right now, and that's the Kamara's credit. We don't have the chance generation.
I mean, that's what Gressel's supposed to be, though, right? And we saw a lot more of those balls in today. Obviously, this whole entire season, it has not played to his advantage. I'm more asking the question, right, is like, you two were super excited for Gressel to come in. Joshua's been Gressel's #1 fan homeboy since he was in college. So, like, you were very excited.
Fan homeboy.
You were very excited to see him come to DC United, and we expected him to be that chance creation. And I understand chance creation through the midfield and chance creation out wide are 2 separate things. But why is that not working to DC United's strength?
I mean, how many times tonight do we say there was only one person in the box? I think that's why we don't.
Martinez is frequently the single person in the box. Last season,
Martinez could outplay every single defender in this league, and he has done it. We don't have a striker like that. So if you're going to play like that, you need the striker that can beat most players, or you need to be able to get in behind players, and we don't have that either. I still think Gressel is good. His stats prove it. He's MLS Rookie of the Year, which, I mean, come on. There's only
so I think kind of what I'm getting at, though, is like, so then does Gressel even work in the system for next year?
Well, we don't know what the system is for next year, right? Which I think is the tough part of going deep on players, right? Is I think there's talent here. There's talent that's hurt right now, unfortunately, too, which has been a big part of this season. But it's just tough to speculate, right? I mean, I want to know what that system is, and I want to know what that coach, wants out of a team.
And at the end of the day, you do not win games if you don't score goals. I was looking back through our past results. Every time we've scored 2 goals this season, we've gotten points out of the game.
Yeah.
Which, hasn't happened as much as we'd like. But if you can get multiple goals, you're in a very good position to at least leave a game with a point. And a lot of the times we've been happy with a point now this season. And you've got to find the goals from somewhere. We haven't managed to create as many as we'd like. It's trending in the right direction. Let's see if that continues.
So just switching it then to something that's like pretty guaranteed next season, is that Areola is going to be back. And something that stuck out to me and what Chris said and what we've heard Yao say in the past is that they're really talking to Paul Areola, and he's really being a leader on this team, and he's really guiding these young players and giving them advice. And even Kevin Paredes, right, has kind of said that he is really taking them under their wing and trying to prune them as good players for DC United. He has signed recently a 3-year contract. It's kind of up in the air whether or not we're going to see him at the tail end of the season or not. There are some I was going to say there are some U.S. men's national team games, but I think those are in Europe, so he might not be available for that call-up.
Yeah.
But either way, hopefully, we may or may not see him this year. Definitely going to see him next year. He's recovering from that ACL he tore in preseason. So what do you all think? Like, is he kind of the next captain of DC United? Like, how do you see him fitting? We don't know what next season is going to be, but he's pretty definitively going to be at DC, and we've heard so many leadership things from him off the field.
I mean, I would like to see that. I don't know that I'm quite ready to cast Birnbaum aside as the captain, and I know that's not your intent with the question, but
I love me Stephen Birnbaum.
Right, well, and that's why I know, right?
I don't want him to go anywhere anytime soon.
And you can have multiple guys demonstrating leadership on the field. You don't have to have the armband. And that's what we've been saying a lot of the season, is that you need players who are able to step up and really bring that leadership and find ways to animate the games, get the other guys to raise their level of play. It's a long season. It's hard to maintain that focus and play all the way through it. I'm fine with having multiple guys who are able to lead strong in practice and in the games and get where we need to be.
Well, and similar to that, I mean, I think we've talked a lot about how we're going to have overlapping talent with a healthy roster. Even if this roster was fully healthy, we were going to have challenges in the midfield, getting everybody minutes. And one of the things that I'd like to see, and I know that, Joshua, I don't think you were quite as excited about it, and I don't think the player himself was excited about it, but, if we saw Gressel in more of a wingback role next season, I think that would be, to me, one of the ways to get as much of the talent potentially on the field at once. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
John, you're absolutely wrong. I think that's where Gressel belongs. He's not going to beat he's not fast enough to beat most left backs in this league, which isn't saying much, but he's just not a fast in behind player. He could do great things he did great things on the overlap for Atlanta, because that's where they put him, because he wasn't a premier striker and they had premier strikers. We have one at right mid or right wing, whatever you want to put Paul at. I think Gressel should be behind him.
Yeah.
He can defend enough. He's got enough reps in the back line for that. Whether he's willing to do that or not, I think he kind of came to DC to play more of a midfield role. But
the good news is everything's changed since he signed here, right? So
yeah,
literally everything. Yeah,
Lots
pretty
of
much
changes.
everything.
Well, and we've seen it a couple of times, and I don't know if I necessarily want to see this, is that Paul has played a 10 for us as well. I think I'd rather have him out wide where he is going to play with the national team as well. I think there's value to consistency there, but maybe that's something that the next coach will look at.
So go ahead.
I just hope DC United is pitching this because as a tactician or a coach, you should be chomping at the bit to play with these pieces, to have these at your disposal, because they can do these things. Areola can play as a 10, but he's also a national team caliber right wing. Gressel can play as right mid, but he has won the MLS Cup as a right back or in that position. So hopefully the dream is that we get a coach who comes in, maybe gets a couple signings of their own, but also is able to develop the squad that we've seen an uptick of performance from.
Okay, so speaking of out wide, and especially kind of our wing backs, we've been talking a lot about rotation on the squad, but honestly, COA has been starting a lot more. I would have expected Fisher to get some reps in this team, right? Like, so obviously COA played really great tonight. He was so offensive. He scored that goal. He had multiple opportunities. He was creating chances. But prior tonight, I would have argued that Fisher is the more offensive defender and that he streaks up the field more and he's better able to kind of provide those chances in. Are you all surprised that Fisher's not getting those opportunities? Again, kind of like, obviously tonight we saw what that was, but going into tonight, I was personally surprised.
What we saw from Fisher in 2018 was great. He was very quick on the wing. He got up and down. He was in the back.
The second half of 2018. The first half of 2018 was a little bit weaker.
Right. Yeah, he came
we were on the road every week.
Came into his form, and then he got hurt. But he was good. And so from that tape and the very little that we got from COA, yes, Fisher was ahead of him. I mean, Fisher plays for a national team. He plays for the Reggae Boys. But apparently in practice or whatever, the coaches are seeing that COA is a better choice. And now we saw it on the field tonight. We haven't seen Fisher score goals, and we haven't seen him. And it wasn't just the goals. COA was in the box multiple times, and I was like, who is that? And we haven't experienced that.
I think Chris has a higher upside than Fish at this point, which is why he's getting a lot of minutes. I think he's got more room to grow, but I think the ceiling is probably higher than it is with Fish. I don't know. I mean,
yep.
There's a big part of me that's like I've always liked Joseph Moore. I think he's been playing well. If you put a Gressel on the other side and you have a Chris available to come in if you want to push Gressel up the field further or whatnot, like it gives you options there.
So
real quick, we're live on Tried and True, the DC United Postgame podcast, presented by Heineken. And of course, if you want to join the show, jump into the YouTube comments, use the hashtag Tried and True DCU, or give us a call at 202-892-6328. That's 202-892-6328. And coming off of a big 3 points tonight, DC United find themselves just 5 points out of a playoff position with 4 games to go, and only 1 point out of the wooden spoon race. So that's important things.
All right. Well, going back to right before, I would encourage everyone to kind of hop on and chat with us. We love when you do it. I appreciate John for pointing that out. But kind of what you said was what I was kind of getting at. Is it almost sounds like COA is filling this role that you would like to see Gressel fill in if he were to play in the defense, right? Like Chris is filling that right now, and obviously he's not at the caliber that Gressel is right now, but we could potentially see him get there. So does that mean that we are able to put Gressel in a different position and we have an even more offensive-minded team, which is crazy to even say because 3 games ago, that's not the conversation we were having.
I don't think our problem is having too much depth at that position. I see what you're talking about as far as the fact that tonight you saw Chris animate and go forward and create the same kind of things we want out of a winger. And there could be competition for that moving forward. And as we've said all along, this is a team that needs to have depth. You can't just have 11 players that you roll out there. We've seen this year that you can get hit by injuries, you can hit by all sorts of different things that hold you up. And if it is a situation where you've got a guy like Chris Dewey-Asham who's pushing Gressel for minutes, that just makes everyone better.
Yeah, I think it's. You want to? I guess my question, Sam, back to you would be like, where is that spot for Gressel then, right? If it's where would you put him to be more successful that we haven't seen this year, or do you think it's different with a different surrounding cast? If we bring in a DP9, right? Does that make Gressel more successful in the roles he's been playing this season?
I think absolutely. I think if we had more of a target forward, I'd love to see kind of a stagger, 2 up top, but a little bit of a stagger. I think that would make Gressel more successful. I also think that Gressel has a little bit, he has more breadth to what he can bring to the team than COA does. And that's not to take anything from COA. I think it can develop into such a phenomenal
People in the
outside
comments
back.
have been saying he's still raw.
Oh, absolutely. He's still young. I mean, 2016.
He's not.
I mean, he's in his mid-20s, right? He has a lot of time to grow.
We lost
into.
a year and a half, too.
Exactly. That's what I mean. He has so much time to grow into. And that's what I mean, young, like his career is young.
Sure.
Maybe
Oh,
he is a little bit older, but he's gone through a lot that's maybe held that back. So I think that he has a lot of time to grow into being that very offensive outside back. And I think that then you afford Gressel the opportunity to play out wide or to see what he wants in the middle, right? Like I'm pretty sure he said that that's not necessarily the trajectory he sees his career going, but I mean, give him the shot, right? Like, see what happens. I'd love to just be able to have that creativity even, because I think that we could capitalize on his skills more if he were higher up the field than having him sit back.
Yeah, you're right. Someone pointed out in the comments that Fisher did play 90 minutes, so maybe this is a bit of a knee-jerk reaction from the ODSM goal. They're both still viable option. Gressel is definitely a viable option at right back once Areola comes back.
Well,
it's good things to have, right?
Yeah, I mean, we started the show talking about, fixture congestion and squad rotation just being a big part of what we're seeing here. And so, yeah, definitely good shout, and appreciate keeping us honest on 90 minutes for Fish on Wednesday.
Yep, do appreciate
But
that.
it'll be interesting to see, what happens next weekend now. I mean, I think it'd be... I think the two are close right now. I mean, I don't think one is head and shoulders above the other, and coming off a night like tonight with Chris being in the right place at the right time, I would like to see him get the start next weekend.
So going into next week with a week off, assuming you get everyone healthy that you can, and that is a big assumption this year, do you think the lineup we see next week is Chad Ashton's number one? This is our best lineup. This is a game where Atlanta's only a couple points ahead of you in the standings. If you're going to make a run, you've only got a couple opportunities left to do it. It would be really great to pick up 3 points in a situation like this. Do you think that the lineup we see next week is Chad Ashton's first choice? These are the guys who I'm going to count on to get me points when I really need them.
So before we get Russell back next weekend, right?
Yeah, there's only one game suspended.
Okay, that's what I thought. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the starting lineup.
If we put on the roster, we get him back.
Oh man,
that's brutal.
Josh has
yeah,
a shot after the show.
No, I mean, Black, for sure, right? To your initial question, though, if I guess there's a big part of me that always thinks we're seeing the best lineup that the coaches believe we can field in the situation based on fitness levels, right? But yeah, you've got to throw everything at the wall against Atlanta this
but my
weekend.
question was that, like, we get Russell back, right? We get Junior Moreno back, and then we also have Bill back, right? So those are 3 very key players who at the beginning of the season were like starting lineup, right? And we've like been hoping for them to have them back.
Yeah.
Those are 3 additions to this lineup that we just said were pretty short, right? We didn't have a very deep bench tonight. So I just thought that was an important clarification as we look forward to next week, is that it will have those additions.
You create a Yamil Assad problem, right? By bringing him back, because I think Yamil's played so well at like the 8 that he's kind of been playing over the last.
I mean, you don't have to put them back in; they're available.
But I mean, it depends on what you want to do, right? Like if you're gonna continue. Well, so I'm not gonna put him in an outside back, right? I mean, I think that's always been the wrong move for Russell when there's outside backs to actually play outside
three
backs
right
that are available and healthy. That drives me up a wall. But
the Sean Franklin treatment,
right? I mean, you could plug Russ and what's his name, Moreno, in it at defensive mid, but I think we've seen that. I've not been thrilled about it. Like, I almost would, maybe just plug Russ in for Nyman, who by the way had a great game tonight.
And you'd sit Junior.
Coming off the injury, maybe.
We've talked
I'm
about
just
this before.
asking.
After a decade of Ben Olsen, look, I hope he's been shaping this roster. We don't know the dynamic between Casper and him. But I don't think another MLS coach who's trying to score goals and win games plays 2 defensive mids. We have 2. I think they're some of the best D mids in the league, but they don't really get to showcase that because they're both playing next to each other, and so all the balls they win, every challenge they make, doesn't go anywhere because we don't have an attack of it. So it will be interesting if Ashton decides to play both of them, or we're talking about moving forward. What do we play 2 D mids?
I don't think you should play 2 D mids with regularity either, and I especially don't think you should do it, playing teams at the bottom of the league like Cincinnati tonight. Obviously we didn't, and then against Atlanta coming up this weekend, that's another team where I'm not looking to defend a whole lot. I'm looking to be on the front foot as much as we can, because not only do you need points, but I mean it's a team that we're capable of beating.
Yeah, I mean, at this point in the season, you might as well go for 3 points every single time, right? Like you all said, like, is Chad just kind of looking at the players he has? I think you can do both. I think that's to win, because I think regardless, like, you can bring a new coach in next season and he can have his own assistant coach that he's going to bring in with him, right? And he can have his own, like, back of house staff that he just kind of clears out the locker room staff and he brings in his own new people. That's not an absurd concept. That's pretty common, right? That someone comes in with their staff. So I think that Chad, even if he's not throwing his name in for head coach, he needs to be throwing his name for assistant coach. And he needs to be going for those wins and showing that he has that tactical know-how and he can provide creative solutions to challenges. And if the challenge is going to be that you can field more than 18, or you can roster more than 18, but you still only have 19, right? And like, you need to figure out how to get wins out of those 17 people. I think that is absolutely something that he should be going for.
Yeah, and something we need to take into account is that it's not binary with these players. That just because they are D-mid or that's what we view them as, they can evolve. A coach can come in and tell Moreno, hey, I need you to be a bit more ball playing. I need you to be a little bit more like what Nyman's been doing on the ball, advancing it more. And we could see that change. The whole right back situation we talked about. Look, it's all pending, and I'm excited for it. I don't think it's very rare for that to just like flip a switch and become just greatness overnight. I think it'll take some time and some working with the squad and with the transfer windows. But those are possibilities.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things we've seen, especially more so as of late, and definitely throughout the Ashton era, which is ticked up to 3 games now, but we've seen 2 strikers, right, which has been tonight. I'd like to see the actual heat map, because it felt like we didn't have 2 strikers for a lot of the night, but on paper, it was supposed to be 2 up top, which is old school DC United in terms of formations,
old school soccer,
right? Yeah. Well, and it's getting to the basics, right? Which in a lot of ways is probably suiting this team.
They're the basics for a reason,
right?
Yeah.
So I think that that helps, and then whether you can do a diamond in the midfield, or you just, like you said, Joshua, you have players that are just stretching the field more and they're getting back to defend, but they're also a little more lethal on the offensive end.
So getting back more to like this season and knowing that we have like more depth on the defensive side, both like in the actual defense and then in defensive mid than we do in, say, like the forward and attacking players. I don't know, like, how do you all combat that? Which we've like talked about a little bit, but do you just ask them to evolve kind of within the season and push up more? I mean, we've seen these players be able to push up more, but it's not necessarily like the 11 that if everyone were healthy are like our best 11 on paper, but our best 11 on paper are more defensive players. Do you get what I'm asking?
Yeah, and I do think that a lot of that is something we're not going to have an immediate answer to either, because a lot of what we've seen out of these guys is how they fit into a system that is defense first, second, and third, and then if you get a chance, maybe go forward, but then make sure you get back and defend immediately afterwards. So we don't know, and you've seen a little bit of it today, like Chris Duyassum going forward and creating chances. We don't really know if a different coach is going to see players differently, maybe have different ways to piece them together. And I think it's exciting to be able to say for a lot of these guys, hey, this has been a frustrating season. This is my chance to really show what I can do and show it for a new coach, because one of the reasons that I think by the end, sadly, it was time for Ben to go, is that we had seen 10 years, we had seen all the tricks that he had, and he himself said it was time for a change. It's a new opportunity for everybody.
I mean, we've seen that from Assad.
Yeah, Yamil has definitely been playing leaps and bounds better over the past few games. And speaking of, players playing well, it's time to award our man of the match. Who wants to go first tonight?
Go for it, John.
I get to go first? Man. This is hard. I mean, I think Donovan Pines had another great night. Obviously, hats off to Chris Aduiachum, but the one player that just really stuck out to me as making a difference, being in the right place at the right time, and kind of making you get excited about the plays. It was Moses Nyman. I was thrilled with how well he played tonight, and I think he's the ceiling is, you talk about a high ceiling. Moses has the potential to be a real stud, not only for the black and red, but hopefully for the Stars and Stripes down the road.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't even talked about him this show, but he did have a really great show. Joshua, what did WhoScores say?
No, I just check WhoScores. I just check WhoScores to smack down any of you guys, because Sam was saying Paredes when he had like 3 passes to the other team, and that was it.
In 90 minutes, wow.
I mean, that would be his only contribution,
Okay.
and you'd still give him the man of the match. My man of the match is Pines. He scored a goal tonight again. He's on a hot streak, the best streak of any DC United player this year. The goal was not his fault at all. It's more of Sites just bumbling. So he would have had a clean sheet and a goal had not for Sites' error. So I'm giving it a Pines.
He had that big header on the clearance too.
Yeah.
He is a force on both ends.
Yeah. Do you think Donovan has a shot at winning the Golden Boot? I mean, he's on pace
for
right?
DCU?
Based on starts and obviously for DCU.
No, for MLS. What?
No DC United player is going to be in the running for the Golden Boot this year.
Yeah, I think he does. I mean, he's Kamara's at 3, and that's the highest.
Can he take a penalty?
Now I kind of want to see it. Not gonna lie, Michael, who's your man of the match?
I think I'm not going to overthink it. I think Chris Aduiachum had a wonderful game. You saw the effort the entire way. First half chasing balls, that probably going out of bounds, but still managed to, put a slide in to keep going. Second half, you saw him, chase a ball that he really didn't know was going to come to him, but he got himself in position, got the goal, won the game for us, and then really could have had a second goal on top of that. So it's straightforward. It's what the team said, and I agree. It's Chris Aduiachum for me.
Yeah, I think the 3 that you said were kind of the 3 going into tonight's pod that I was like, these players have all been playing so well tonight, and they all definitely deserve a shout. But for me, I'm going to go with COA. I think that he's just really embraced this new mentality that the team has had. And like I said, kind of going into tonight, I thought that Fisher brought more of the offensive option. Obviously, one game kind of doesn't change the entire mentality, but he definitely showed up tonight, and he showed up in a way that I think this team really needs. And he provided a lot for the team, not just in his goal, but he provided a lot of opportunities. He had a lot of really great kind of defensive, hardworking plays. He provided a lot up top, and I think he deserves it tonight.
Also picked up a card on the night.
Oh, so did Moses, though, and I'm so proud of him. I always root for our young kids to get cards. I love it.
Yeah, Moses's tonight was what was it? I think it was Wednesday when Moses was actually getting real physical with somebody. Tonight, I think he took somebody out who could have had a really good ball in to potentially score a goal. It was so absolutely different types of yellow cards, obviously, but yeah, no, Moses. I'm so excited about him. I think it took me a little bit longer. You can blame my soccer IQ or how many beers I drink during the games, but it took me a little bit longer to see Moses's ceiling, I think, than it did for guys like Yao and Paredes. And obviously, I think the media has been real big on Nyman. He was named recently to, I don't know, was it like top 50 prospects in the world or something? Yeah, which is incredible. I obviously don't have quite that eye for young talent, but you can see it in games like tonight. He didn't seem like a kid out there, right?
It was shocking to me. Yeah, he would do plays. We'd be like, yeah, Nyman, and then they'd zoom in. And I'd be like, he's a child. I knew that he was obviously the youngest on the field going in, but they'd just zoom in and you would just see his face, right? And he's obviously still a kid out there on the field, which just makes all that he's doing, I think, so much more impressive, that he's really growing into his own, not just in skills, but just his persona on the field and being able to own what he's doing and really get into those hard, smart tackles, right? That maybe you take a yellow, but you're really preventing something that could have been bad for the team. I think that's really intelligent. And I loved seeing him do it. And I'm so excited. You're right. Such a high ceiling for where he's going to go.
I did check the stats. Kamara is leading the team with 3. He's got Assad, Bryant, and now Pines behind him. But 2 of Kamara's were, yes.
And Andy Wayne.
And but 2 of Kamara's were PKs, so I think the tiebreaker there goes to the run of play guys. So any of those 3 guys score a goal, I'm giving them the golden boot.
I think they'd all deserve it too.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating end of the season in the DC United Golden Boot race.
So one thing, I don't know, John, this might be where you're going, but one thing that's not DC United specific, but obviously was announced, is that the Supporters Shield is not being awarded this season. I have my thoughts. I'd love to hear what you all think first.
And no wooden spoon either.
Yeah.
Which is probably more relevant to our current situation.
Definitely more relevant to us. I mean, off the cuff, I don't know that it bothers me. I mean, I think I understand some of the teams that are near the top. I know Toronto was frustrated to hear that, but look, at the end of the day, pound sand Toronto. But I mean, at the end of the day, this has not been anything close to an even season. It's not been anything close to a normal season. And I actually buy in a little bit. I mean, the trophy's called the Supporter Shield, and most supporters were not at most games this year. So, yeah, I don't know. Those are my thoughts. What do you guys think?
I completely get where folks like Toronto are coming from, people who are at the top of the league, saying you've overcome a lot, and MLS came out after the Supporters Council released their statement, said you're still going to get all the benefits of that we've tied to it. It's at the end of the day, it's a piece of silverware to put in your trophy case, but we value those pieces of silverware quite a bit. So my initial reaction was similarly saying, these are unbalanced schedules. You played a lot of the teams at the same times. It didn't really have any rhyme or reason for how it worked out. And that's kind of what we said at the beginning of the season, talking about how it's a shame that you're not going to play every team in the league anymore, how it's not really representative of somebody who has run through the gauntlet. It's going to get away from that. So
wait. So what did MLS say? Because I more saw what the Federation and then the council said. Are they still awarding a trophy?
So MLS is not giving out a trophy because the trophy is given out by the Independent Sports Council. But MLS came out and said, they didn't even go so far as to say that they were disappointed in the decision, but it was to say that the team that finishes at the top of the league will get the top seed in the playoffs. They'll get the bonus that they give out for those for finishing in that position. I think there's a CONCACAF spot.
Yeah, there is. I think that was the main thing they said, right, is like they'll still get CONCACAF and you still get home field in the playoffs, right?
And they said like everyone will always remember that they were the top regular season finisher in the season of 2020, except for they're not called the Shield.
It's important to remember too, and I mean, this year's felt like a decade, right? But I don't know, sometime in 2019, if I recall correctly, the Athletic got a hold of sort of the league's like they hired a marketing company or whatever and said like, hey, how do we do MLS better, right? And one of the things that was in there was get rid of the Supporter Shield, and the reason that was in there was just because in the minds of the market research that these folks did and provided to the league, nobody cared in the U.S., right? Like we care about playoffs, we care about crowning a champion at the end of a tournament. Regular season stuff's kind of like meh, and over time it became less and less even between the East and the West. Right?
I was about to say that's the biggest thing, yeah.
And of course now this year of like, well, wait a minute, you don't even play every team was like you said, Michael. Pre-pandemic, we weren't going to play every team, and then throw that monkey wrench in. And I mean, we've seen, feels like we play New England every other week and can't ever beat them. But yet we haven't seen, where some teams, we don't see Orlando at all this year, which I mean, it's probably a good thing with Orlando playing well, but yeah, minimal balance, if any, this year. So I don't know. And you do wonder, what does that mean for the future of the trophy? I mean, I think the intent and learning more, which I learned a little bit more this week about where the trophy came from and kind of why it exists, I think will always stick around because it is a supporters driven thing. But it's tough for me just knowing how unbalanced everything's going to pretty much have to be going forward. That it's how valid is it, right?
Oh man. Just like make sure no Red Bull fans get what I'm about to say. Like I wish we could unrecord, but you guys could still hear. I think the Supporters Shield is a pretty big trophy. I would rather win the Supporters Shield. I would rather have DC United win the Supporters Shield than MLS Cup, basically, because it. Look,
that is the hottest of takes.
Any team can show up halfway through the season, get hot, spend a bunch of money in the transfer window and win the MLS Cup. It's goofy. It's weird. It's not even soccer, right? It's some made up stuff that we did here in the U.S. Oh man! Gosh.
If it wasn't okay, so two things say that. One, if it wasn't the Red Bulls frequently, could you name the last few Supporters Shield winners?
The LAFC was the best team maybe in the history of the league, minus some DC United early teams and Toronto that one year when they also won the Supporters Shield. Yeah. That team was the best team in the league, hands down, and didn't win MLS Cup because playoffs are goofy and weird, and you have to fly to see the RSL and play there.
So part of what I'm getting at, go ahead.
I was gonna say, last year you had LAFC. The year before that was the Red Bulls, and then the year before that was Toronto. Toronto was the last team to win both trophies, so it is a challenge to be able to hold it together through the playoffs.
Absolutely, and part of what I'm getting at is not to say that the concept of a supporter shield is bad. I think it's a great idea. Yeah. But I think you can separate, kind of what we have to deal with in MLS because there's so many teams, expansion, and it's not a balanced schedule, right? That is very different than the European concept, which I think we all really appreciate of it's the dream to play. I mean, the schedule in Europe is brilliant where you play every team home and away. And that's it. And at the end of that, you don't need playoffs, right? Yeah, everybody played everybody twice, and somebody comes out on top, and that's the best team in the league.
Right.
Totally
agree. That's where I was getting. We don't have that in the U.S. We don't have even schedules, and even with that, there's we play them after the January transfer window or the summer transfer window, so the teams are better in the second half of the season. That's not perfect, but what we have is so far from perfect that it really does devalue the supporter shield. I wish it was better. I wish that we played every team twice, home and away, just like that.
Yeah, but you'd still like to win it over MLS Cup.
In its existing format?
I would like to watch DC United win a supporter shield. I'm not saying I would...
More so than a cup.
I would...
is what you just said, so maybe...
I haven't experienced a playoff win in so long. It's hard to say that. Oh, man. I would love to come to DC United and assume they win every game because that's what it takes to win the supporter shield. You have to almost win.
That's fair. Yeah,
every single game. What was the points total? The 70s, 60s, 70s?
Yeah, until recently it hadn't gone over 70 until LAFC last year. So
which I think is a good point too. What Joshua was
you're
just
basically
saying.
winning
102 points on the year. So that's
really good. I would love to view that. And not saying look, MLS Cup is still the way we have it set up. It's the crowning achievement, but the supporter shield is. Well, soccer fans' dream, right?
Yeah, and not to rehash the discussion we had earlier this year. I had a lot more interest in the Supporter Shield when you at least played every team. In a league like this where you've got a divergent table with two different sides, and you're not going to be able to play everybody twice, but at least you could say that everybody had a shot at you, and you came out ahead of it. In a year like this where we're not going to play most of the people in our time zone, much less across the sides of the league, which is probably for the best for the way we've played for a lot of the year. I think I'm okay with giving a pass on the trophy this year. Just like we talked about whether we would care about the MLS's back trophy, which I think moving forward we're not really going to look back on with too much regard.
Yeah, we'll try to forget that one forever.
Yeah, I think it will go in that store of useless trivia for this team finished first. They don't technically have a shield. Now, if we were in position to win it, I would certainly want them to hand it to us, and the team should actually make their own trophy if we were to finish in that position. That's not our problem this year.
So D. Gomez brings up the CONCACAF Champions League.
What about it?
If you win the Supporter Shield,
you
get that berth, right? So is that a part of the conversation? Is that part? So Joshua, when you say you'd rather win that, does that lend more?
You also get to go because if you win the MLS
So
Cup.
Specifically what he said was, I'd like to see DC United win a supporter shield so we can make an appearance in the CONCACAF Champions League. So how does that play? Obviously that's what he thinks. How does that play into what you all think of the trophy?
So the way you get to CONCACAF Champions League, there's several different ways to do it. It's either winning Open Cup, it's winning MLS Cup, it's winning the Supporter Shield, or being the top scoring team in the other, or the top points team in the other conference. And then it trickles down based on if somebody wins multiple. So there are several ways to get there. Any one of those ways means that you are a pretty darn good team to be in that situation. And if DC United were in contention for any of those, absolutely. And this team should be shooting to be in Champions League, especially since they've changed the format from where it used to be, where you had to play several games against teams that had lower budgets that were not really on the level you're expecting. Since they've changed it to be the modern knockout, where you end up playing a team from Mexico almost immediately, or the second round at the very least, it's definitely a lot more attainable.
Yeah,
we're a long way off from being competitive for a Champions League berth.
Well, and it's interesting that you bring up the new format there, right? Because, Joshua, you alluded to, kind of the playoffs being a bit of a sham at the end of the season, right? And one of the things that's even more frustrating to me is I don't know, I guess I adopted soccer, from the European side before I picked it up here in the U.S. To the point where I am now. But, like, when MLS got rid of the two-legged, playoff games last year, I thought that was a travesty, right? I think that makes it even worse of, like, you catch a team that's hot and you only get to play them one time, and you play them if you play them on the road, like, it's even that much harder. I think it's just less representative of how good a team is, and so, like, luckily, CONCACAF still has that, which is fun, and that was one of the things we were kind of robbed of this year on the long list of things we were robbed of because of COVID-19. But, like, seeing some of the back ends of those games would have been fun.
There are some rumors that they may be trying to finish it off in December,
but I think it'll be like a bubble type thing, was what I'd read. Which obviously it would be great to see it through, but it is always fun to just see. I mean, especially when they're midweek games, it's some of the stadiums have a tough time getting. I mean, DC United used to have a tough time getting fans to come out to those games, midweek when you're playing, a CONCACAF team, but then you end up going to Mexico on the back leg and it's mobbed and it's a crazy atmosphere, right?
Which is why I think it's interesting that you said that you prefer the two legs, because there were, like, some stats behind the two legs that, like, if you played home the first leg, you were, like, pretty much going to win it, which was, like, not how it was set up to be, right? Like, the lower team had played the leg home first. So, like, even like you saying that, like, you prefer that way, I think a lot of people would disagree with you just because of, like, the way that the stats ended up, right? You get to win at home and then kind of just, like, sit back away, whereas the thought was supposed to be that, like, you get the second game, it's kind of like taking the second PK, right? Like, a little bit of the pressure's off, but that's not what ended up happening. So you can almost say that, like, messed with the playoffs a little bit differently even.
We've definitely gone off the rails as far as talking about...
Oh, I love where this conversation went.
But, yeah, but you're right. It is strange when you have a format where the better team gets to play at home in the second, but their goals are worth less. Because that's what happens when you have the away goals rule. If you don't have away goals, I think you would rather host the second leg and have it all to be decided at your home place. But if you have away goals where an away goal is essentially worth 2, it's damaging to the team that's a higher seed.
Well, and there's some coaches that prefer it either way, right? Like, some coaches like to play at home in the first leg, and some coaches like to play at home in the second leg. And I remember having a similar conversation, back at RFK, the last time we were in the playoffs and dealing with, or the last time we were in one of the two-legged fixtures rather, and kind of dealing with that is, like, I would be fine with whoever the higher seed is, like, they get to decide. You want the home leg first or you want the away leg first? You pick, right?
But away goals don't matter because they're kind of shambolic.
Yeah, I mean, away goals is part of, I think, what we're used to at this point, but I don't know. It's shambolic until you end up in a PK, in a penalty shootout, which is like the worst. Oh, I hate that.
Listen, and that's like
I'd rather a third game.
Fine, that's fine. I don't love the games go to PKs, but I think even more so, I hate that games are decided on a goal that means more just because of where you're playing it. I don't think that's, like, true to the game, right? Like, the whole point of soccer is that kind of every goal means the same thing. So the fact that you have this situation where, like, you score and you're losing, but because you scored, you get to be the team that sits back because you're away and you got that first result. Like, that doesn't go towards, like, what the game is supposed to be.
Now, how would we feel if we had the same one-legged playoff we have now, but you did it the same style that the FA Cup does, where if you tie, you replay it at the other team's ground?
I'd be fine with that. There's not enough.
There's not enough time.
The USTV will not be okay with that.
Yeah, no.
But from a pure competition format,
it'd be fun.
I'd love that.
I think. I mean, Sam, I guess just to go back to away goals real quick, though, I kind of disagree because I don't know if it's because it's been so long since we've been able to go to a game, but, like, I think to me that was always a big part of, like, what the supporters bring. of like it is harder to play at certain places, and like if you have that advantage and then you go and you get you get a goal in a tough stadium, like that's harder to earn than a goal at home. I think that I would think the stats would back that up, right? That like teams generally score more at home. So I think away goals probably should count for a little more.
I love that you said that, because that just brings it back to this whole supporter shield conversation, right? Like, I did not expect the conversation to go the way it did, because what I was anticipating saying about the supporter shield is that, like, I've been a part of a supporters group since I was 21 and could drink and fully appreciate it. I've been going to games a lot longer, but the supporter shield really has nothing to do with the supporters, right? Like, the stats about like what it means to be at home, and like the advantages to you guys both just looked at the comments because you're expecting me to get roasted for that comment.
No, people were talking about the old school MLS penalty.
Oh, okay. No, but I think
which is indeed excellent.
I think like saying this is the best atmosphere in MLS and saying this is the team with the most points in MLS are two completely different conversations.
Sure.
So like, and I probably said it on the pod, I've not been shy with this opinion, is that like this, I mean, the supporter shield is not the same thing that they do in Europe, right? It's like not even, because you're not playing everyone the same. And the Western Conference isn't a harder conference. When you went to this season where you're not even playing the same, every team in the league, I was like, okay, the supporter shield just doesn't mean a whole lot anymore, right? Because like, how can you say that competition is even the same when pre-2020 season, like you're playing a team like Dallas, who's like up and coming, and maybe you're playing them twice, but you like never play Cincy, but this other team in the East beat Cincy twice and they have more points, but the competition is like very off, right? Like, you can say that prior to even this season, but then the fact that you're not playing everyone at all is just crazy to me. So then fast forward to today, and the fact that you say that like, yeah, the supporter shield is not being awarded because it's been so crazy because you're playing the same team 8 times and you're not playing anyone in the other conference, totally fine, whatever. But the fact that you are going to then say that, like, we're not going to award the supporter shield because there weren't supporters in the stadium, I kind of disagree with that mentality. I think that, like, had the pandemic hit and they were like, okay, we're going to go the 2020 schedule the way it was intended in March and just supporters aren't going to be there, I think you still award the shield. Mm-hmm. But I like the argument that it's because supporters aren't in the stadium. I disagree with that. And I think there's so much, and like, I'm so excited to like this time next year when we have so many more stats about what it means to play home with supporters and to play home without supporters. That's going to be massive. I'm not saying that supporters don't bring an energy and they don't absolutely help a home team. And like, there are definitely stadiums that are harder to play at because of the atmosphere those home fans bring. That's not the argument I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that like the supporter shield is not awarded based off like how hard it is to play at your stadium because this schedule is so unbalanced. Sorry, it took me a little while to get there.
I think that's perfectly fair. And, I think the better argument on it is about the really unbalanced schedule instead of the semi-unbalanced schedule we normally have. And I think we'll see some of that in action as far as the atmosphere next week. Atlanta is having fans in their stadium for the first time this season. I think they have a cap of something like 20,000, but it's also a stadium that can seat 75, so they'll be spread out to some degree. Even
like Texas has had them. I want to say Seattle has had them, right? Like we've had other teams in the league have fans, and Atlanta is maybe the first one. Obviously, you think of like LAFC and like Seattle and Toronto. Even like you think about these places that like have this like huge fan support and where you can like feel it. And even if you like have fans in the stadium, but it's not as many fans, I just think it's very different. So I completely agree that like having the home field advantage is very different, even when you just have some fans as opposed to like your entire supporter section who's like screaming for 90 minutes and beating the drum and you can hear it and like you can't even hear your teammate across the field because the fans are so loud. I just don't think that like that necessarily is what's make or breaking a team this season having the most points in the league.
Yeah, lots of things. Lots of things are going to be said about this season, and once we get past the pandemic, like you said, Sam, looking at the stats of with fans, without fans, with half fans,
even across the world, right? Like I'm such a data person. There's going to be so much data to look at and to see, and like this is not obviously something anyone ever anticipated seeing, right? No one ever thought that you were ever going to play a home game without having fans. So just really seeing the data behind that, I think, is going to be such a motivation as a fan to really go and to really make your voice heard and to make that effort, like whether it's a home game or whether it's an away game and you're trying to travel and like at least have a little bit of like your chance heard. I mean, I've traveled to DC United games, right? And like there are times when they definitely look up at the section because the home fans have gone a little quiet and you're screaming as loud as you can because you want them to feel that support. I think that like you have to have that baseline, and having no fans is really that baseline. So that I just see the supporters culture exploding after this, and there being the data to drive that, and I'm so excited for it.
Yeah, there's a reason that one of the biggest punishments you can get, you see a lot in European games, is having to play behind closed doors.
Yeah.
We've all been punished with that this year to some degrees, and there have been clubs that have been able to get folks back in the stands. I think this coming weekend will be DC's first experience with a rather sizable crowd. You've seen smatterings of people in Orlando and Dallas and Salt Lake, but it does sound like they're going to have quite a few people there. So we'll definitely see how the stats pan out.
In a lot of ways, it'll be their first true away game of the season because pre-pandemic DC United played 2 home games. So with that type of crowd, it will be interesting to see, and hopefully we'll find out midweek if the team gives any thought to that or if they're just going to keep out and fly the plan as is. But as you mentioned, DC United take on Atlanta United down at the Benz this Saturday. Weird kickoff time of 4 p.m.
Yeah.
4 p.m.
So it'll be interesting to see if they can keep the good times rolling. Sam, what did we miss? Anything going on in the world we got to hit this week? We hit Supporter Shield, obviously.
Yeah, no, I think that's all I had. Obviously, there's a lot happening coming in at the turn of the month. Like, keep educating yourself, keep letting the team what you want to know. I think we've all been pretty educated this summer, so I'm just going to say, let the team know what you want to say, keep educating yourself, and keep just being aware.
Yeah, I want to comment. We saw some tweets early in the show. Me and Sam are Total Soccer Social listeners, and we thought things were much more grave than they are with Daryl's situation. It seems he is gone. He's now under hospice care at his home with his family. He's been fighting cancer for a long time. If you guys don't listen to the show, he's an amazing guy. He's influenced me as a watcher of soccer, as a podcaster, I guess, and as a person. I've gotten the chance to hear from him and Taylor, and they're just great people. So thoughts and prayers with those guys, and I wish them the best.
Yeah, TSS, always a recommended listen. They're one of, I want to say, the first really podcasts in America about soccer. They started off as a radio show. They chat every single day. They've just been so influential to everyone. Sorry, this is super emotional. I had a chance to talk with Daryl and Taylor both when I was first just thinking about like being on a soccer podcast, and they were like so encouraging and inspirational, and they've just like meant so much, I think, to America, like soccer in America. So all the thoughts and prayers to them. I'd encourage everyone to just go listen to their podcast. They've been doing a lot to try to help Daryl in the fight. It's absolutely heartbreaking that he's in hospice. He's English. I think that his mom has gotten permission to come from England to be with him. I mean, that's not a great sign, right? It's really hard. I have to say, he's always been a Wolves fan, right? Like, Leeds play Wolves tomorrow. I'm a Leeds fan, but like also kind of like rooting for the Wolves in spirit of Daryl, right? Like, he's just done so much, and it's heartbreaking. So everyone kind of reach out and like share your love with his family, and just I guess like hold your family a little closer, right? Cancer sucks.
Yeah, certainly not the way we wanted to end the show, but our thoughts and prayers with the whole TSS community this week.
Yeah. And I mean, that's so serious. We also did get 3 points tonight, right? So like, I want to give that the seriousness. I also want to celebrate everything that DC United has been able to celebrate. It has been a hard season, and you can't have both, right? It's a crazy pandemic time, and you got to find like the light in the dark, right? So I am excited that we got the 3 points today. Thanks for everyone kind of for listening, and hopefully we're able to continue that.
Yeah, big win tonight. DC United hope to keep the winning ways afloat on Saturday as they take on Atlanta United. Who knows? 4 games left. Anything could happen. Could they squeak in the playoffs?
Only 5 points, man. We're only 5 points out.
Sam thinks they could
win the Golden Boot for DC United. That's what I'm tuning in.
Both can be true. Yeah, Donovan Pines can win it, and we can get into the playoffs.
There's no shortage of reasons to continue watching this team as we float through the end of the season. Thanks for hanging out with us, staying up late on a school night here on Tried and True, the DC United Postgame podcast presented by Heineken.